Welcome back to Following Noah on a Stormlight podcast. This week is episode 110, and we are doing chapters 29 through 33 of Rhythm of War. We have plenty of Shallan and Adolin content to talk about this week, a little bit of Kaladin and a little bit of Venly. Paul, you were saying that you have been missing your Venly point of view either last week or the week before. We finally are back to her, so how are you feeling?
Well, we do get to see Venly here a little bit, and our, do I even call them Parshendi anymore? The fused, the higher ones, or whatever they're called nowadays. I'm really excited. This is Venly's book, so I've been wondering when we were really going to start seeing from Venly, because we're getting, we're not far in, but we're getting further in. We're a decent way through part 2 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit in, so.
Elliot?
Yeah, we're pushing a third of the way through the book here, and we still have yet to see a Venly flashback chapter, which I was expecting to see more of. I was really excited to see, and we haven't seen one yet, so we better get like 6 in a row later or something like that.
Sounds good. We will have to wait for that. Do you guys have 2 words to summarize this episode? We'll go with Elliot first.
Sure do, as always. I'm going to pull from the very small Kaladin excerpt, actually. Most of this episode is going to be about Adolin and Shallan, but there's a little bit from Kaladin that was great. My 2 words are lift together.
Oh, yes. Well, does Kaladin have 2 pages in the book?
Pretty much.
And Paul?
My 2 words for this week are adhesion and embodiment.
Oh, good. All right, let's use these 4 words and talk about Rhythm of War. All right, Paul, let's do yours first. Adhesion. I'm curious what you picked up with that word, because I will be revisiting that word myself later. So what'd you get?
Yes, this raised probably my biggest question of this chapter, which we will dive into probably more in depth later on. But in the Venly chapter that we got, we hear that there are 9 surges, or at least according to the fuse, there are 9 surges. And so that means one of the 10 surges that we know is at least fake in their eyes. I'm believing that it's just fake in their eyes right now. But that surge is adhesion, which we know Kaladin has as a Windrunner as well, and that's shared next to the Bondsmiths. So
yep.
I thought that was really interesting. I'm curious to hear what y'all have to say about that later. But that instantly made it to one of my 2 words. My second word is embodiment, and that is for like the first sentence or 2 that I read, or excuse me, listened to.
Yes, proper Vorin man.
Yes. With our reading here, chapter 29, we get an epigraph that talks about a sword that is the embodiment of preservation and ruin, which took. Yeah, that's my second word. We'll move along for now. And Elliot, what are your 2 words?
Let's hear from Elliot, and then we will certainly be talking about epigraphs here in a second.
I'm gonna jump in and read the quote that this comes from real quick. This is Kaladin. The squad is stronger than the individual. You simply need to get them pointed in the right direction. Get them to lift the bridge together. And he's talking about the mental health patients that he's working with. But this is kind of a running theme we've seen with Kaladin a little bit lately, with the whole come together, support each other, have, that bond of brotherhood, I guess, something like that. So I picked it actually because it's a bit of a contrast from what we're seeing in the other chapters. In the Adolin and Shallan chapters, it's a bunch of intrigue and espionage and people working against each other, and then Kaladin's kind of spearheading this charge to work together. So that was why I went for it.
Cool. I really like that. All right. Without any further ado, we have some epigraphs to talk about, specifically chapter 29 epigraph. If you are a patron, a couple weeks ago, we posted a video of Eliot and Paul reading this epigraph for the first time, and it was probably one of my favorite content pieces we've ever made for this podcast. It was very fun for me to watch you guys have a meltdown in real time, and so that was very fun. But for epigraph 29, I'm going to read all the epigraphs for this episode. If you want to hear, and we're not done with part 2 by any means, so there's more to this letter. And at the end of part 2, we'll probably revisit this again with the full context. But within the context of last week, when I read all the epigraphs up until that point, and then including this one. So here we go. Chapter 29. I have begun searching for a pathway out of this conundrum by seeking the ideal person to act on my behalf. Someone who embodies both preservation and ruin. A sword, you might say, who can both protect and kill. But this does not get to the core of your letter. I have encouraged those who would speak to me to heed your warnings, but all seem content to ignore Odium for the time being. In their opinion, he is not a threat as long as he remains confined in the Rosharan system. I do not share their attitude. If you can, as you suppose, maintain Odium's prison for now, it would give us necessary time to plan. This is a threat beyond the capacity of one shard to face. Unfortunately, as proven by my own situation, the combination of shards is not always a path to greater power. We must assume that Odium has realized this and is seeking a singular, terrible goal, the destruction and somehow splintering or otherwise making impotent of all other shards other than him. So back up to the chapter 29 one, and I will let you guys have at this. What does this mean?
So this means that our beloved sword friend, Nightblood, is actually I'm not entirely sure what term to use for it, but the vessel for not one, but 2 shards of Adonalsium.
Okay.
Like we've
That is
seen...
certainly one interpretation, yes.
Okay. Yes. This is at least my base understanding. First time being exposed to this. That's what it means. I'm thinking of it in the context of... What is it? Like, I don't know if you equate this to, like, is this on the playing field of, like, the Stormfather and the Night Watcher? Or is this like... Are preservation and ruin inside of this sword? Unclear a little bit on the mechanics of this in my mind. But Nightblood is probably the most powerful thing that we've seen so far. Because he's got not one, but 2.
Let me share my thoughts, and we can try and unpack it a little bit. When I first read that, when Trevor made me read that on camera for the first time for that little bit we did, yeah, my brain about melted when I read it, because your first thought goes straight to Nightblood. It's like 2 shards in a sword, protect and destroy. We have seen probably the most powerful being, entity, object in this universe we've seen so far, Nightblood.
Yep.
That could make sense. That somehow, some way, Nightblood is a vessel of 2 shards. But I'm with you, Paul, that this spins off all the questions. And now that I've had a little bit of time to digest it a little bit, you could easily interpret this differently.
Sure.
It could easily read as a metaphor and not literal. We're reading this literally, right? Two shards together in a sword. Well, you could. This could easily be I need a vessel who can be like a sword for me that both protects and destroys, because that's the power that I have within these shards, preservation and ruin. Now, that being said, this is clearly crafted to mean something for us. We are intended to take this meaning from this. I am 100% sure of that. Is it a red herring? That would be really mean, but it's possible. It's possible.
Okay, so let's go through this a little bit slower. Preservation and ruin. You guys have been name dropped 2 more, and Paul, you may or may not have previous knowledge to one of those from Mistborn, but you guys have been name dropped 2 more. How many shards are you guys missing now?
Are we missing? It's 1 or 2, isn't it? 1.
It's 1.
Nice.
Wow.
So we're like
you guys
current,
are missing
aren't we? 'Cause
1. Yes, you guys. As far as definitions go, you're not current. Like, you don't know all of the things that all these shards can do. But as far as names go, you guys know as much as we do.
is this? Well, this is probably not true, but it's one of the big things that, in my mind, we weren't ever gonna reach this, knowing as much as everyone else does, you know. But I'm sure there are things that we've learned in the past that there's only so much to learn about, and so we know as much as the next person.
Sure.
But this is like a first, like in my mind, really big check off the list, you know, which is really cool. I'm excited. I've gotten to learn a little bit about these shards. One mostly in mention, and the other like a little bit in practice. I am not done with the Hero of Ages. I am in part 2. Still, I'm so sorry to all those who I've gotten some comments recently about. Oh, I'm just waiting for Paul to finish Hero of Ages, and I will finish it. I promise.
It's a lot of stuff happening for you, so no, Don't worry about it. Okay, so this sword that we're talking about here. Let's back up from the sword part and read right before it. I have begun searching for a pathway out of this conundrum by seeking the ideal person to act on my behalf. Someone who embodies both preservation and ruin. A sword, you might say. So 2 things. Whoever's talking apparently has both, as we can surmise from the, like, he implies it there, but then they insinuate that they have both later on. They have yet to find a pathway out of the conundrum that they find themselves in. So this whole theory that you guys are launching of Nightblood hasn't happened yet at the time of this letter writing. Now, it might have happened by the time of Stormlight 4, by Rhythm of War, or even Warbreaker, or whatever. If you want to run with your Nightblood as both Ruin and Preservation Vessel, or whatever you guys want to run with there. And I won't say too much on that. But at the time of the writing of this letter, that has yet to happen. Right? I just wanted to clear that up of the timeline there.
That has to be true for our theory to work, right?
Right.
Is what we're getting at, right?
So,
and there's an unknown time gap between Warbreaker and Rhythm of War.
Right.
So this letter has to have been even before that, which we don't even know how long that was before, which could be plausibly a long time. We don't have a lot of, our only connection is a couple of characters that have showed up, but then we just learned recently that Zyle, who is Vasher, is apparently dead-ish, sort of. So he could have been that way for a very long time, theoretically, I think. So, yeah, timing of this letter is going to be important.
Right.
That's true, because I kind of just made the distinction that hypothetically, if Nightblood is the embodiment of the vessel of the actual shards, preservation and ruin. I'm assuming that that's why he's so powerful, right? And we saw that power displayed in Warbreaker, so I'm assuming that before that is when that would have happened. So
Right.
was it just a normal sword before?
Yeah. And then I want to talk about shards moving forward here, because whoever is writing this letter has two of them. And we haven't seen that before, the one vessel having two shards. But they say that it's not actually all that cool that it sounds like, because he has two shards that are so polarizing that it almost hampers their abilities, right? They feel like they're so torn on everything they want to do, and if you hold both preservation and ruin, those are two very opposite powers, two very opposite emotions, and you kind of just stall, right? Like,
I'm going to push back against that a little bit, or at least from my understanding, because I feel like what we usually see from Nightblood is that he wants to destroy evil, but isn't it from a place of like wanting to preserve good? He's just kind of under the influence that, or under the perception that basically nothing is good. There
right.
are very few things that he's like, no, that's not evil, you know? So he's just like, if I want to preserve the good, therefore, I must destroy all the evil, which is like everything. So
I was trying to wrestle with this a little bit too, because this part of this that talks about like the combination of shards, and all of our shards seem to be attributes, or at least named after attributes, I guess. So I was starting to wonder, like, if you combine two shards, do you get some sort of a combination attribute of the two? Does the shard no longer become whatever it was and become some sort of a mix of what it's combined with? Those were the thoughts I was having.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is if they're in the same vessel, do they just play off each other, or do they meld and become something else?
Right.
Like if you had valor and honor at the same time, that'd be pretty cool. All right. Anything else for our epigraphs before we move into the actual book here?
Yeah, one more thing. Do we know who this letter is addressed to?
Yes.
Is it Hoid?
Yes.
Okay. Paul, are you sitting down?
always.
Oh, okay. So part of the letter that's easy to skim over if you're going fast, but when you read it again, I kind of had a light bulb moment here. If this is addressed to Hoid, listen to these sentences carefully. If you can, as you suppose, maintain Odium's prison for now, it would give us necessary time to plan. This is a threat beyond the capacity of one shard to face. When I read that, the implication there seems to be, hey, you who's controlling Odium, you shard may not be able to hold this very much longer. Is Hoid a shard or a vessel of a shard?
I like this, but I would, before I get really excited about it, I would want to go back and see, because we've seen letters written by Hoid, right? So that's historically what we've seen, right?
Mhm.
Was he like writing in, like asking for a shard to come help kind of thing? So I feel like that could just be a response. Like, this is not, like, one shard isn't going to be enough. Um, in my
Okay.
mind, it could very well be like interpreted as a response to a letter that Hoid wrote. But who cares? I want to talk about Hoid as a like as a shard. Like, which shard would he be? I don't remember all of our ones there, but is he whimsy? You know, like what's going on?
Right? You may have a point there. I'm gonna have to go back and read it again because when I read it here, I thought it was pretty clearly implying that Hoid was the shard being mentioned there. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's responding and saying, "Hey, you asked for my help as a shard. Well, one shard's not going to be able to help you." I still think this might be implying that Hoid is or has a shard. But you also know that he's a Knight's Radiant now. He's just got all the powers, I guess. I guess we already knew that, right?
So back in The Way of Kings, we read in an epigraph when we had no context at all. We read in the epigraphs of Hoid's letter to Frost, who is part of the 17th shard, a dragon who's part of the 17th shard, asking for Frost's help. Next book, Rhythm of War, or Words of Radiance, we read Frost's letter back to Hoid and saying, "No, I'm not going to help you. Odium is trapped on Roshar. We're going to leave him there." Then, Oathbringer, you read several letters back to Hoid from semi-anonymous sources. You can figure out who they are. All saying, "No, we're not going to show up," except for one. Do you guys remember that? So the Endowment wrote him back. Devotion wrote him back. No, who's on Taldane? Whoever's on Taldane wrote him back.
I don't remember.
Anyway. Yeah, I don't remember. But then there was a third letter that said, "Yes, I didn't know you existed before, but yes, let me see what I can do." And then this one is a second letter from that last recipient. So that the same author from Oathbringer, that third one that said, "I will help you," is writing this letter and saying, "I really do want to help you fight Odium, but I have no idea how," is what he's saying here. So
anyway, new running theory: Hoid is a vessel of a shard of Adonalsium.
Sounds good. All right, we will revisit these at the end of the part once we have the full context of the letter, and we can dive into chapter 29. Shadesmar, we have hit land, and we are starting our on-foot convoy towards lasting integrity to petition the Honor Spren to join the war. Several things happen in these series of chapters. We'll kind of just knock out 29, 30, and 32 all at once here. Adolin and Shallan, well, let me back up. Shallan she's in and out of these chapters. And Vale, it actually does most of the talking. And she talks to Mraize with the special cube that the spy has moved. What were you guys' thoughts on Shallan picking up the cube and talking to Mraize? She has, the moment she picks it up, something strange happens. What happens?
I was really intrigued by this. She's like trying to start the communication, and then she like zones out in a memory or a flashback almost, and she remembers that she thinks she's used one of these communication cubes before, like before a long time ago. And I was really stuck wondering why. Why would she have used one of these things in the past? I mean, we still don't quite know what it is.
Right. And who would she be talking to, and what are the implications of that? Yeah, because she has a vision of home, her palace in Yakaved, implying that she's used one way back then.
See, what's kind of been throwing me for a loop with, honestly, a lot of our reading here is I feel like we're getting the allusions to needing more Shallan flashback chapters and not Venly flashback chapters, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well,
Yes.
That's true.
shouldn't this all be in book 2? You know, or at least like before we had the big resolve. So yeah, it's been kind of throwing me for a loop because most of our Shallan content is, oh no, what Shallan knows something's wrong or alludes to stuff being wrong. I'm like, okay, we had your arc. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
Shallan confirms, or very nearly confirms, something for us here in this chapter that's actually very helpful for me. We talked a little bit a while ago about the question of, could Shallan have spoken oaths before? Could she have, how did she kill her mother with a shard blade if she hadn't already been a Knight Radiant?
Right.
And so the theories were kind of spinning. Has she spoken these oaths before? Did something happen and she somehow regressed, like all the way back to 0, to the point where when we meet up with her, she meets Pattern for the first time, or so you think. Now we're learning, actually, no. She straight up says it right here in this passage. I spoke oaths before. And so that's really helpful clarification, actually, that those theories, I think, are mostly confirmed right there in these sentences here, that Shallan is remembering that she had progressed already with Pattern and then somehow regressed all the way back to 0, Pattern with her, such that when we first met Pattern, he is like a very simple, can't even like string a sentence together, right? And so
Right.
Pattern and Shallan both had to kind of build back up from 0 after already been at, I think we theorized before, she already had to have been ideal 3
At least, yeah.
Knight Radiant. So yeah, so a little helpful clarification here, actually. It leads me to kind of, I think where I'm at with this Shallan story is, I really want her to remember what in the world happened before. And then at the same time, I'm kind of scared. I maybe I don't want Shallan to remember. Maybe we should just leave Shallan like she is for now. I wonder. I'm very scared that I think Shallan is also scared of that. Is Shallan the actual real Shallan? Or are we going to learn at some point here that who we think she is actually just another persona that she has taken on to protect herself, and maybe Veil's the real one, or Formless is the real one, or some other entity out there is the real girl? It's going to get confusing fast if we go there.
Yeah. We see most of these chapters through Veil's point of view, and there are certain things that Veil tries to push Shallan to remember, and then certain things that she deliberately doesn't touch at all, where she knows that's really dangerous. I don't want to break Shallan, so I'm not going to touch that one. But then there are other parts where she really tries to get Shallan to emerge. So where do you guys think this is heading with Shallan? We've spent a good chunk of part 2 on Adolin and Shallan in Shadesmar here. We had this whole battle sequence about to happen with Dalinar and Yasna and Teravangian. They all went off to go fight a battle, and we haven't seen them since the end of part 1. So where do you guys think this is headed with Shallan and this, all the page time she's getting?
Well, it has to end up with some big reveal. Either confirming her worst fears that Formless is like a murderer, or she's like been doing all this crazy stuff behind her own back, or either that, or it just kind of continues as a like, oh, Shallan has mental battles, like it could just be her in her own like head worrying still. And I don't think so. I'm assuming there'll be some resolution there. So I think there's going to be some kind of big reveal with that. So I'm hopeful that it's really good, or a big surprise, I guess.
I agree. I think we're going to get something big. I think Shallan may be even more important and pivotal to the story than we think she is now, because I'm seeing parallels to the drama we had leading kind of through part of last book, which was, hey, what was the reason for the old Knights Radiant doing the recreants, where they betrayed their oaths and walked away? What secret could be so evil that they would kill their spren? We learned that it was a big reveal. It honestly wasn't as crazy as I thought it was going to be. I think the Shallan bit may be as crazy as we think it's going to be. Because think about it. She has told Adolin that she, with her own 2 hands, killed her father and her mother. And she's still terrified of another secret that she thinks will be the breaking point where Adolin can no longer love her anymore. She shared these terrible secrets, and she's scared that there's something worse that is going to cause everyone else not to love her. So I'm really worried what that's going to be. I think it is going to build to a huge reveal, and it's going to be like Shallan is the mother of all heralds, or something ridiculous.
That works. I like that theory. I'm sad I didn't come up with that one myself.
I just want to give a quick... Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, we're about to have the big reveal that she's Light Song.
Oh, yes.
We're finally going to get that reveal. So that's going to be the 4th that's formless.
I want to give a shout out to Adolin here in these chapters, because bless his heart, he is sticking with Shallan through thick and thin. He said his vows, and it doesn't matter if Shallan has DID, he is right there with her. And 10 episodes ago, I was what's the word I'm looking for? Slandering Adolin's name for being the most overhyped main character that we have. I recant. He is the reliable young lad that you would love to hang around, and he's got your back no matter what you're going through. So he's right here with Shallan no matter what.
Well, Trevor, I for one appreciate this, because I've come to like Adolin more and more and more as we've read this. I think who's grown on me the most so far from reading this book. Just seeing him in kind of a variety of ways. He's always been there among my, like, I like him, but wasn't in contention for like probably top 5 maybe.
Sure.
Like just outside of that, but now I think he might be up there.
We've all got room for character growth, and I've received mine the last several pages here. So
nice. Well, now I'm just waiting for that Teft development, and then we'll all be happy.
I've been waiting for that for a while. For you.
I'm sorry. I'm just hanging it over your head at this point. I know. Causing problems. I apologize.
All right. So Vale talks to Mraize, and Mraize drops the "let me know if you see any more of these glory spren." And Shallan and Vale had specifically not told him about the glory spren. And this seems to point all fingers towards Beryl. This is the trap that Shallan set up a couple chapters ago. I'm going to tell you content A, content B, content C. All right, let's see which one Mraize tells me about. So now we're all suspicious of Beryl, right? Isn't this a little too easy? All right, like didn't this go a little bit too according to plan? I feel like Mraize is smarter than this and knows what's up here.
I also think Mraize is smarter than that. That would be, I think, a fairly obvious mistake. If he's talking to 2 different people, like the number one thing on his mind is going to be, keep my information separate. Don't let them know that I'm talking to the other, or don't let Shallan know I'm talking to whoever. And as far as we've seen, Mraize is an extremely competent spy person thing, whatever he is. So it seems like a very rookie mistake that he would not make.
Right. I agree. Elliot, I asked you to put money on who you thought the spy was, and you thought it was Beryl. So now what?
Does that mean
I'm not
you've made a rookie mistake, or is it way to go, Elliot?
I'm not convinced it's not Beryl, but I'm not fully convinced it is Beryl either. I still think she's prime suspect in my mind. Maybe Mraize did make a goof, or I don't know. Maybe she's a unwitting spy or something like that. I don't know. Of the suspects we've had so far, she seems the most suspicious to me. I do agree, though. All of this seems maybe a little too easy, spoon fed. So I'm not all in on it. I'm gonna regret losing my money by putting it on Beryl, but still my vote.
Okay. So we land in the port here, and then we start walking towards lasting integrity. And there's this group of humans in the port, Tukari humans. And they all group up and follow our caravan here. And now we've got Caravan A, who's got all of our heroes. And then a couple miles back, we have Caravan B, who is tailing them to lasting integrity. And I guess we forgot to mention here, we find Nodum in the port here. He's our ship captain from last book, who eventually let them go with Silfrena. And he has been dishonorably discharged by lasting integrity and exiled for like 300 years or something. So he's on patrol and we find him. And so he's walking the same path that everybody else is, except nobody's kind of caravanning with each other. We're all a little bit separate. So Nodum's up here, Caravan A, Caravan B, and we're all kind of walking the same direction. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. Anything more on our Shallan and Adolin chapters?
Our Shallan and Adolin chapters? No, I'm all good on those. I still don't fully know what this cube is, but we talked on that. That's just like my update to all our viewers, because we've mentioned it before. Newsflash. I still don't know what it is, so.
The only other thing of major note in these chapters, right, is Adolin is trying to figure out the right way to approach the honor sprint when they get there.
Yeah.
They have letters from Dalinar, Yasna, a few others, right? So they can deliver the letters, but they know they're going to get a hostile reception when they get there. They know the honor sprint don't want to talk to them. So Adolin's kind of trying to figure out, do I just hand over the letters? Do I need to come up with some other strategy? Do I try and, beg for mercy? Do I try and, say, hey, we really need help, take pity on us? Or do you try and take more of a trick him into a deal? He's trying to figure out all the different strategies he can go on. I'm not sure if he settles on one by the end of these chapters here, but he's strategizing, which is good.
Yeah, I don't know how you convince someone who's been alive for 2,000 years and hating you the whole time.
Right.
Good luck. All right. Our Venly content. Here we go. We are on a war march towards Urithiru up this mountain. And they only walk at night and during storms to not get seen by Windrunner patrols. And yeah, that's about it there. There's a conversation between Raboniel and Venly, which actually is really helpful. Just a huge lore dump unexpectedly on mechanics of surge binding. So what did you guys learn?
Well, I'll go ahead and hop in right away with my one of my two words, adhesion. And this is one thing I was really looking forward to talking about And to be frank, I don't remember the reasoning for why the Fuse said Adhesion was a fake surge, because I believe Rabonio gives some like kind of distinct and specific like clarity as to why like it's apparently not real or not the case. But it was weird. I wasn't expecting this one to be the fake surge. I was thinking maybe it would be something with the bondsmiths. That's usually my guess because it seems like they're the most unique of our orders with surges and things like that. But I don't really understand why Adhesion, why Adhesion is the fake surge, and two, why it's a fake surge. In the fused's eyes. As far as our Knights Radiant, like I'm from the understanding that it's not a fake surge. It's a real surge. It's completely normal, but in the fused Sid's eyes, it's just not real.
I like this section too, where we got to learn. Rabonio does explain a little bit and kind of gives us a hint. That the hint she gives is she claims that adhesion is of honor alone. And she says that the other 9 surges are of both honor and cultivation, and therefore they are pure and correct and all of that. She explains it interesting by comparing cultivation to like life and honor to law. So like cultivation to give the power the surge life, and honor to like put it into law. Whereas she claims that adhesion is only of honor and therefore doesn't have the life element of cultivation, is therefore unclean, or I didn't quite know what she's trying to get at there.
Do you think that adhesion is just in honor because of all the laws of physics that it affects and stuff? That was a really
what a time for him to blip.
that was a really poor attempt at a joke. Thank you so much.
You can
I'll
try
be
it
here
again.
all week.
He blipped. You can try it again.
Did you hear it?
I think I know where you're going with.
Okay.
I missed all the keywords. I think I know where
Okay.
you're going, but I missed it.
Well, allow me to retell this beautiful joke so y'all can laugh hysterically. Is this adhesion fuse only? Wait, I said fuse. Is this adhesion surge? That's what I'm so sorry. Is this adhesion surge only from honor because it breaks all the laws of physics? You know, or it just affects laws of physics, so it's just tied to laws, not life.
We got there.
Yes. That was a marathon of a joke attempt.
I'm gonna have fun editing that one.
Yeah, just cut it all out, please. Just remove that one.
Gonna do like take 2, take 3, take 4.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh man.
So adhesion. Paul, you said that you assumed that it was the bondsmith power. It is the bondsmith power.
That's fair.
If you look at my wheel out here of all our Knights Radiant, each of them have 2 surges, so you can put a surge between each one, right? And it'll be shared by each Knights Radiant, right? So then just treat that surge like a fused power. Like that's a fused class, and then each Knight Radiant borrows from 2 of them. So then if there's only 9, there needs to be 1 missing, and it's the one between Bondsmith and Windrunner for adhesion. Because Bondsmith has Stone Ward powers and Windrunner powers, if you want to think of it that way. And then, yeah, Windrunners have Skybreaker powers and Bondsmith powers. So,
yes, I guess historically never thought of it as much as the bondsmith thing to use adhesion.
right. It's all about pulling things together, uniting things. sticking things to other things.
And we've also got the 9 unmade, right? So kind of still the question out there of, are the orders of fused, if you will, supposed to align with the unmade at all? It doesn't seem like we've had any, direct correlation to those yet. Maybe we could try and draw some comparisons, but I don't know. This was still a helpful chapter regardless to help us figure out the fused.
Yeah, the unmade are kind of strange because you can talk about the Lightweaver one that we saw in your Theru, but then it gets weird with the Thrill. Is there a Thrill equivalent? Is there
right?
What? It gets kind of foggy. All right. Any questions about the Venly chapter? We are on the way to attack your Theru. All right. And 33. Short and sweet. Kaladin and Lirin having a quick chat. Actually, it's Kaladin and Lirin and his mom, Hesina. Thoughts?
I kind of already shared my takeaway from the chapter, which was the quote that I read with Kaladin, taking what he's learned with the Windrunners, taking what he's learned from Syl and his oaths, and now applying that to his medical practice, which he's kind of focused in on these mental patients. So pretty cool to see him do that, actually. Pretty cool to see him take that leadership that he's learned and apply it in a place that you'd never expect that kind of thing to be applied. At least I wouldn't. You would think, oh, he's a battlefield leader. He needs to be on the front lines. Nope, here he is back at Urithiru, taking care of the people that nobody else knows what to do with. And so, yeah, here we have Kaladin. But I think the conversation it's cool. They're trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we take care of these people? How do we help them heal?
Hesina has an interesting line with Kaladin where she says it's kind of extraordinary that two people who struggle with mental health talking back and forth can actually help each other as opposed to hurt each other, which is the kind of the revelation they're coming to here. And Kaladin has this realization that that's the only thing that got me through Bridge 4 was I had all these other guys that I had to take care of, and they helped me through it, and I helped them through it. And so he's almost reminiscing his time in the Way of Kings in Bridge 4. And, the reader's like, you're a third ideal Knights Radiant, and you're wishing you were running bridges, whatever. All right. Anything else for this episode?
Nothing else here. We're making good progress.
Like usual, I'm excited to read more. And hoping maybe next time we'll see a Venly flashback chapter.
We might. We might not. All right. Sounds good.
We might.
I think we are building to some action scenes about to happen, it feels like. So let's read and find out if that's about to happen. Thanks for joining me, Paul and Eliot.
Ooh. So Light Song is going to come out and fight. That's going to be the big... Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.